Welcome to podcast episode number 3, and today we have a lot to talk about, all right? And it starts with the Eagles and the way they found themselves back into the playoffs, and it's just crazy. The team stuck together. They really found a way to bond and fight when the things got super, super tough, and that starts with the head coach all the way down to the players in the locker room. But it's not just going to be about the Eagles in this episode. There's been a ton of NFL head coaches that have been fired, canned. The playoffs are now set. There's just a lot to talk about all around. So I just want to sit back, relax on this morning after the Eagles find a way to grind and make the playoffs and just talk football. There's nothing better. I already had my coffee. A lot of it, may I add. I have a problem when it comes to the coffee. I will admit that. But let's hop into this, all right? So we will start with the Eagles, and it's not about the Redskins win, right? The 24-0 W against the Redskins, what is the takeaway out of that? There really isn't much. I mean, Nick Foles, another record, right? 25 consecutive passes completed, and he really could have had 26, which would have been the solo lead, but a little drop pass that could have been thrown better, should have been caught, though. Whatever. Nick Foles does it again. He breaks another record. The guy just doesn't stop doing that. We hold the opponent to, 89 yards? Like I said, there's not much takeaway of this Redskins game, but it is cool to see that. It is nice to see the defensive line getting pressure. It's just great for confidence. It's nice to see the defense shut out a team like that and really hold them to less than 100 yards total. It's nice to see that, regardless of how banged up they are, just for confidence-wise, going into the playoff-wise, seeing them do it, they just have a different type of energy and confidence out of it. I talked about this in the post-game show, but an 11-minute and 49-second drive, I mean, you're talking a quarter length, literally a quarter length. That is absurd. That is so much. That is so long. I mean, what a drive. And to end it off and cap it off with a nice touchdown, too, makes it even sweeter. But wow. I mean, that's obnoxious. When you look at the time of possession, it was such an extreme to the Eagles. 43 minutes and 19 seconds for the good guys, and 16 minutes and 41 seconds for the Redskins. Let's talk about the way the Eagles fans went into their building and just dominated the noise. That place was electric, filled with Eagles fans. I mean, are you kidding me? When the Bears took a big-time lead, I believe it was 21-10 late in that football game, you heard the crowd erupt. After the game, the fans are sitting in the... This is when you have to realize how hard it really is to get a quarterback that is lethal. And that is a star and a stud. And just look at what we have at the quarterback position. That's all I'm going to say there. I love what Nick Foles is doing, though. I'm not making this anything relative to Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. I'm just saying, how hard is it to really find a guy? And then look at what we have with our two quarterbacks. Can't take it for granted, was my point there. And also, you look at the highest paid quarterbacks. They're not in the playoffs. That's the truth. But it's also reality. You have to pay the guys. So, when you find a guy, you have to pay them. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the NFL. That's the nature of sports. But you take a look at the top paid quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, they're not playing in the playoffs. And is that because of the structure of the money going to the quarterback and the way it's separated throughout the rest of the team? Maybe. Could that be a factor? Yes. Could it be, maybe those teams just aren't good enough as a whole? Like maybe you have your starting quarterback, but is your defense good? You have your right weapons? Maybe. I mean, you look at the Minnesota's roster, and they should be a team that's in the playoffs on paper. But I'm just saying, it's something to think about with the highest paid quarterbacks. But my argument is you have no choice. You can't say, I'm not going to sign you to a long-term deal for a lot of money, so let's go back to the draft and find a new one. That's not how it works. You know Howie's a phenomenal guy when it comes to moving around contracts. I actually believe there's a little bit of me. A little tiny bit of me that says maybe there's a way that Howie Roseman keeps Nick Foles, finds a way to make the contract work, Nick Foles comes from money. Maybe it's not all about the cash. And he wants to stay here. He loves it that much. Maybe he wants to stay here. Who knows? There's a little bit of hope in my heart that says that that's possible. Because it's not a necessity to sign Carson this exact year. We still have... Realistically, there probably will still be more coaches that get fired. But at the time of this recording, that is everybody that has been released of their duties and everyone that has been fired. I think I just saw that maybe Atlanta's starting to move some pieces around too. And I'm sure there's more. I mean, seriously, I'm sure there is. But as a whole... let's bring this back to where we were with the Eagles. As a whole, I just love everything that happened. And there's no doubt, and I will never deny, there's no doubt. At times, I thought there was no chance. And that's just based off of the way that they were playing. But it has been a complete turnaround on how this team is moving the ball. The defense is playing better. Their coaching staff has been way better. And I've definitely been hard on Jim Schwartz. Definitely. And I think he's going to stay at this point. See, it all depended. His system all depends on the defensive line getting pressure. And that wasn't happening in the beginning of the year. We weren't getting any pressure. And that allowed the cornerbacks to get roasted, the 10th string cornerbacks to get roasted at that point. And now that we're starting to play way better and starting to dominate the defensive line, the system works. So I got to look at this coaching staff and say, yeah, you proved me wrong. They probably listen to Sports Talk with Broads every single day, every weekend, and say, man, this kid's something else. Right coaching staff. And the coaching staff proved me wrong. Proved me wrong. The offense starts flowing. Defense starts shutting teams down. Offensive line, dominant. Defensive line, elite. Elite. Fletcher Cox and Michael Bennett. Come on. Come on. What they have provided so far on this backstretch run here, elite. With the backs against the wall, the team shows up and plays. And that's why I give them some credit here, and that's why I see possibility of winning the game out in Soldier Field with the veteran presence. Guys like Darren Sproles, Jason Peters. Jason Peters, now this is interesting. How the snaps are going to work out through practice. Is JP going to play full time? Is there going to be a time where Vaitai has to come in, step in, and play left tackle again? My guess is maybe. My guess is maybe the way that Jason Peters has been all season long, basing this off of what we have seen throughout the season so far. Banged up here, banged up there, quadricep, anything. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I know this team is going to be game planning. I know this team is excited. I know this team has put in so much work and so much grind throughout the last 6 weeks. I love them and praise them for it and can't stop just processing how this team really did it. Definitely not my favorite season. But when push comes to shove, guess what? We're in the playoffs. We're in the playoffs with a chance to dance. And speaking of Dallas, Eagles at Chicago, Chiefs and Pats relaxing, Saints, Rams, waiting to see who their opponent is. A ton of head coaches fired. Since 2016, Doug Pease the only tenure left, and he's got a Super Bowl championship and a playoff run coming this season. Nick Foles, I mean, there's no words to describe it. It's magical, but he's got it. He's banged up, though. How will that hold out? We will have to see. It's just a crazy season for the Eagles so far, and I'm excited to see where this magical ride really brings us, regardless of what happens here at the end of the season in the playoffs, regardless what happens.